He's all I have.
Well, that's just it, Wanda. He isn't yours.
Ding dong, the witch is here. Which old witch? Well, the Scarlet Witch, obviously. WandaVision Episode 8 further lifts back the veil on what we've been watching this whole time, and everything is finally starting to make some sense. Who's really behind Wanda's Westview anomaly? What the heck is Agatha Harkness even doing? And why and how Vision, who's very dead, is still floating around Wanda's makeshift reality. Plus a fresh batch of farm-raised Easter eggs in case you want to use your ancient arcane magical powers to make breakfast for dinner or whatever. But first, I have to warn you, to do all this, we're gonna have to spoil every major thing that happened in this episode, and let me tell you, there is a lot, so if you don't want to know or haven't seen it yet or have been avoiding Twitter, now would be the perfect time to step through a magic door into a magical flashback sequence until we sort it all out. Okay, now that we're past the spoiler warning, let's get to the big reveal. There are two visions. Inside Westview, Wanda created her vision from scratch, explaining why he can't leave the Hex. Outside, Sword just reanimated the real Vision's body in a mid-credits scene by harnessing Wanda's magic, giving us White Vision, whom we know from the comics. Also, Wanda is the Scarlet Witch for real now, and we finally know the whole truth behind the Westview anomaly. It really was Wanda the whole time. She created the whole thing, and Agatha wants to take the Scarlet Witch's power for herself. So much to unpack in this one, so let's start with the Vision stuff. Boom! That is White Vision. Through flashbacks, we now know the real deal regarding the world's first and only vibranium synthezoid. This is the Vision we know, created by Ultron and Tony Stark, killed by Wanda, resurrected by Thanos, and then killed again by perhaps the most intense migraine headache of all time. Sword wound up with his lifeless body, and they'd had it this whole time. Wanda didn't steal him away, she just stopped by to pay her respects on her way to create the Hex. More on that in a second. In the mid-credits scene, we learn that Sword used Wanda's residual magic left on their drone to bring Vision back to life, and the weapon they're about to launch on the Hex, it's not a nuke, it's White Vision. This seems like it might be that mysterious cataract project, which, well, that's clever since the definition of a cataract is a medical condition where an eye becomes cloudy or opaque. Get it? Your vision is obscured because your eyes are turning white? Just a little off-color ophthalmology humor for you. Anyway, White Vision first appeared in the pages of Marvel Comics' West Coast Avengers. His body was disassembled, and Hank Pym put him back together but couldn't restore his mind. The result was White Vision, a vibranium synthezoid with none of the memories or latent humanity or charm that made him who he was. Cold and unfeeling, this Vision was a literal blank slate. Fun fact, Marvel Comics creative team Roy Thomas and John Buscema originally wanted Viz to be all white in the comics to go with his ghostly, ethereal name, but back then an all-white character was just the color of newsprint comic book paper, which didn't look great, so they decided to slap some iconic Rastafarian colors on him instead, and bada bing bada boom, Vision. But I digress. If Wanda has to go toe-to-toe with White Vision, we may very well find out who's really the most powerful Avenger. So how is Vision also alive inside the Hex if he's not the real Vision? Well, we got that answer too. Wanda created him using her magic, her memory of him, and what looked like some extra juice from a long-gone Infinity Stone. Again, through flashbacks, we learned that when Hydra unlocked her power prior to Avengers Age of Ultron, she had direct contact with the Mind Stone, the Infinity Stone that powered Loki's scepter and later powered Vision. After saying goodbye to the real Vision at the Sword facility, she drives to Westview and finds the plot of land Vision bought for them to go, quote, grow old together. Oh, that's heartbreaking. And that's when she snaps, unleashing her unfathomable power to build her perfect home, to transform Westview, and create her perfect husband. So now we know for sure. No, Wanda is not doing a basic Weekend at Bernie's bit with Vision's actual corpse inside the Hex. If anyone's doing that, it's Sword.
Who's been messing up everything?
It's been Agatha all along.
After last week's big reveal and quite frankly an absolute banger of a theme song, we were all kind of expecting to learn that Agatha Harkness was the one powering the Hex and lending her power to Wanda's to create this false reality. But that's not the case. Westview is Wanda's creation top to bottom, and Agatha, just like her theme song suggests, is the one messing everything up. So what's her deal then?
I need you to tell me how you did this.
Well, she's a centuries-old witch from Salem with a penchant for killing other witches and stealing their power, which includes her own mother, which, dang, that is ice cold, even for a witch. Anyway, now all she wants is Wanda's power, and she's been lurking around the Hex trying to manipulate Wanda into revealing her true self.
I got close with fake Pietro, if you will, but...
Real Pietro's corpse is still dead as hell, full of holes, and on what's left of Sokovia, and it was never Mephisto powering him.
It's
Alright, we get it, we heard the song. Anyway, Agatha runs Wanda through a whole bunch of magical flashbacks that explain almost everything we've seen so far. More on those in a second. Anyway, Agatha's whole flashback gambit ends with her taunting Wanda while choking out the twins because she is that evil. The Westview anomaly and everything in it, the kids, Vision, all of it, all exists through acts of pure creation.
That makes you the Scarlet Witch.
Ah, she said it! She said the name of the Marvel superhero who Wanda Maximoff is in the comic books.
I understood that reference.
But of course, this whole episode was a close study on the history and backstory of one Wanda Maximoff and her ascension to the title of the Scarlet Witch. And through the flashbacks, we got a greater understanding of why and how WandaVision and the Hex all came to be. For starters, the sitcoms. Way back after episode 4, I guessed that Wanda and Pietro watched a bunch of reruns of American sitcoms to learn English when they lived in Sokovia. Well, I was half right. They did watch them to learn English, but not reruns. Their dad came through with a whole suitcase full of DVD box sets, which may or may not have been bootleg. I Love Lucy, Bewitched, Malcolm in the Middle, which wasn't actually on DVD until 2002, but we'll let it pass. Along with English, they also gave Wanda the idea of an ideal family home, which she later tried to recreate in the most literal way possible. We suspected from the beginning that WandaVision would expand on Wanda's origins, and the flashbacks do that big time. In the Hydra experiment flashback, we see that Wanda's power was there all along. It was the encounter with the Mind Stone that unlocked and amplified it. Would you imagine that? A character in the Marvel Universe who has latent abilities that don't manifest until early adolescence / some incredibly stressful situation. Where have we seen something like that before? Anyway, then we get a scene of Wanda and Vision in her quarters at the Avengers facility. This seems to have taken place between Avengers Age of Ultron and Captain America Civil War. Vision comforts her as she grieves for Pietro, and they watch some good old-fashioned American TV together. We also got to see Wanda's final moments with the real Vision deep inside the S.W.O.R.D. facility. She was shocked, she was sad, but she didn't go nuts, attack everyone, and steal Vision's body as director Hayward tried to suggest earlier this season. The fact that she could actually create a vibranium sentient weapon on her own seems to be what's got him so freaked out. But of course, the most important flashback gave us Wanda unleashing her power in a way she never had before, creating the Hex from scratch along with her home and personal vision. It's this power that Agatha Harkness really seems to be after.
What's your secret, sister?
Dinner is served.
Breakfast for dinner.
And once again, it's time for some Easter eggs, but this time we're going to do it a little different. There were no new fake commercials this time around, but because of the flashback nature of this episode, we think we got direct explanations for all the fake commercials we got earlier this season. That beeping Stark toaster, that references the Stark bomb that Wanda and Pietro had to stare at for days. By the way, Agatha suggests that Wanda kept the bomb from exploding using her latent magic power, specifically name-checking a probability spell and alter chaos magic, both terms from the comics. But those Stark missiles don't always explode on time. Anyway, speaking of comics, when Agnes squared off against her mother at the beginning, her mother's energy field took the shape of what appears to be a crown, and some fans think this might have something to do with Sorceress Supreme Zered Na. In the comics, she's the successor of the very first Sorceress Supreme Agamotto, that guy whose necklace Doctor Strange wears, and her spellbook, the Tome of Zered Na, is filled with notoriously powerful mystical knowledge. We did see a spooky spellbook in Agatha's basement last week, and we know that Wanda is playing a part in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and maybe we're casting too wide of a net on this deep dive here, but Zered Na hails from Atlantis, home of one major Marvel character who's never been on the big screen, Namor the Submariner. But we could just be fishing for references here. Back to the commercials. The Strucker watch is a nod to Wanda getting experimented on by Hydra, as does the Hydra soap commercial, which also calls back to the mess she made in the opening scene of Captain America Civil War. Nexus, like we said last week, this references Wanda's status as a Nexus being in the comics, but it also more directly speaks to the major life stuff that Wanda is dealing with, and maybe she should be on some kind of medication for that. But what about Yo Magic, the snack for survivors? Well, after this episode, we think the twins Tommy and Billy, just like Vision, are constructs generated by Wanda's power that can't exist outside the Hex. We have a hunch some pretty messed up stuff is going to happen to the twins based on what happens to them in the comics. There still are some loose threads though. There's Agent Wu's missing person who brought him to Westview in the first place, and Monica Rambeau's mysterious aerospace engineer. Are they real characters or just red herrings? Anyway, while we're asking questions, what did you think of this episode of WandaVision, and what do you think is in store for next week? Wanda versus Agatha? Vision versus Wanda? Vision versus Vision? Monica versus Pietro? Let's all duke it out in the comments below. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode of Canon Fodder. For more on WandaVision, check out our deep dive on those adorable twins and why we think horrible things are going to happen to them very soon. And be sure to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch. Remember, may the Force be with you. This is the way. Wait, that's the wrong cinematic universe. Anyway, enough said.